Is everybody able to log into the information on the board? If you need help, let me know. We're using that instead of the overhead. It's easier for you guys to read it. This overhead's not the greatest overhead. And make sure you click on the join via browser button and not the one above it. You won't have to log in if you click on the join via browser button. You just have to put in your session ID and your name, I believe, and that's it. Hello.
I tried to click on my photos and oh, they don't check in.
Nope. And you need to log in to Makiko, what we used in Dory class, to see the overhead a little easier.
Yeah, this book's pretty interesting. I didn't know all this stuff.
Oh, yeah. The text?
Oh, yeah, like that, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good text. It really is. I like it.
Yeah, I didn't know.
How you doing?
12 characters.
No, yeah.
That's crazy.
No, just on Tuesday. But Andrew, you'll need to log into the information on the board. Just make sure when you log in that you hit the join via browser button at the bottom. We're going to be using this for you guys to view my screen versus the overhead because the font size is really small on the overhead. It's easier for you guys to view it on your computer. Just make sure when those logging in that you go to that website at the number 1. That's the ID. You'll need to put your name in and then the bottom button, join via browser. We'll get started here in about 1 minute. When you log in, you'll just see my screen. You won't be able to move it or anything. It'll just be like when I move it, you'll see it. But hopefully it'll be easier for you to view it from where you're at versus trying to squint and see the overhead.
going
Hmm. Yeah, you might have to, you click that button twice sometimes.
Now like I have to read all this stuff. I'm like, how do you like protect like your home life?
Oh yeah.
Stuff like so much.
Yeah.
All the schools that were hacked in that 1 month.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's crazy.
I never knew. I never knew it was like that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like that.
What Wi-Fi are you on? Oh.
I'm on the RDC one. Like the same thing.
Yeah, do the RVC one. Try that one. You guys want to connect to the RVC Wi-Fi if you have a laptop. Otherwise, it's really slow on the other one. You will need to log in with your S number, I believe, with the RVC one. Yeah, accept all that.
I know, like when we were in
Yeah, much faster.
Downstairs, they were having problems.
They were, yeah. They should have. I think they fixed it. So it worked fine for me anyway. Coming in.
Well, I have to re-log in.
Yeah, well, I would refresh the page and log back in. The bottom button. Did you click that very bottom one?
Oh, wait, the very.
Yeah, that's the one you want to click. Yeah, you don't have to log in that way. It could take you right to my Mac.
Because I think I had it downloaded before. So
Yep. All right, cool. Anyone else not in yet? Okay. Well, you can see on the screen the what's due Sunday, the About Me review questions, getting started in week 1, chapter 1 quiz. On the next tab here is the actual PDF, page 55 is where it starts the review questions for chapter 1. Just do the reading and answer the questions. All I need back from you is the answers only. So like 1A, 2B, 3C, so on and so forth. You'll post it in week 1 for review questions. And then the quiz, you have up to 3 opportunities to take the quiz. You'll need to log into that information here. And I think that computer's already logged in, or the screen's up in front of you, so should make it faster. So questions on what's due Sunday. All right, next week, looking forward, we're going to be doing in chapter 2, system threats and risk. And then the lab is going to be NT reset and review questions. No quiz next week. All right. And just so you know, if you do have classes week 3 on campus, the campus is closed Friday and Monday, week 3 for faculty development day. And so anyway, if you have a Monday class and you didn't know that, campus is closed. Okay, so now we're going to look at chapter 1, introduction to security, and talk about some of the basics of network security and ethical hacking and some of the facts that are kind of interesting that surrounds it. If you've done a little bit of reading already or browsed through chapter 1 a little bit, you might have noticed some of the interesting things that have been going on and what has happened. And it's ever increasing, the number of instances from hacking people's personal accounts to whole country takeovers with hackers attacking whole countries and power grids. So, objective, we're going to look at challenges of securing, because there's so many different levels to secure how do you do it? We'll look at some of the types of attacks, basic steps of attack, and 5 principles of defending an attack. So prominently within the 21st century, 2 things have really jumped out as far as security. One is personal security and information security. Personal security would be identity theft. It's the #1 crime in the world against people all over the world. If you haven't yet been a victim of identity theft, you will be at one point, more than likely. Whether it be a credit card's number's been stolen at somewhere you shopped, and they send you a new card, and you're like, okay, I didn't know that. Great. To someone gets a hold of your social security number and uses it to apply for a car loan or something. I don't know. A whole bunch of different things can happen. And on that note, and we'll talk more about that this semester, there are some safeguards you can take for identity theft. Equifax and some other companies that monitor all of your credit and monitor every single time somebody uses your social security number or looks up your credit information. There's tons of other companies, but CreditWise is another one as well. I use Credit Karma. I use that one. So whatever you get a hold of that's reasonably priced and does a good job, I recommend doing it. I have caught stuff before it got bad because of monitoring tools like that. And so you might have heard of monitoring tools and go, waste of money. Some of them probably are, but a lot of them aren't. And so just need to do your research on it. Information security will be data, whether it be corporate data, we'll say, place that you work, to securing information. Like here in town, you might have heard in the news recently, Ingersoll had built one of the largest manufacturing printing presses in the world, and it was, you probably hadn't heard about it before. And one of the reasons we didn't hear about it before is because it was a company secret. It was kept under wraps, which a lot of their projects are, because they do work for NASA and they do work for the government, and it's need to know basis as far as who needs to know the information. But if that was to creep out into other companies, they could maybe grab a hold of that or that concept or patents or whatever. And patents is another one that's big too in information security, especially in the Rockford region. Tons of companies in the Rockford region have patents on a lot of different things, from manufacturing to, the list goes on and on. Tons of patents put out every year. How do we secure that? So securing information basically is no simple solution. I wish there was a magic wand or some step-by-step 1, 2, 3, and it's done. There's many different types of attacks and way attackers can attack a system, or even attack your personal credit. And then defending against these attacks can be really difficult, very difficult, because they're constantly changing. Example would be malware or mass mailing of bogus emails to get people to click on a link to steal your account. Those emails can be created easily and free at no cost if you know what you're doing. And you can make an email look like it came from anybody. You can make it look like it came from PayPal, which has been hacked before. We've ever been in a phish account like that, to AOL, to GoDaddy, to Facebook, to Twitter, to even the US government. And so many different attacks, and they're changing constantly. I mean, the number 2 moneymaker when it comes to data theft is in your inbox every day and on your phones now with text messages, to get you to buy products and to, on your browsing habits and your email, what comes in your inbox. Because even Gmail's done this for years, and Yahoo does this, and all the email companies do this. They will look, they won't read your email, but they scan the words that come through, and then they apply ads determined on what type of email content you get in your inbox. You might not be aware of that, but that's what they do. And it is in the fine print when you sign up to all these accounts, by the way. But most of us don't care, so we just sign up for it anyway, and we just get pop-ups, and we're like, don't care. Or emails. Yes?
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah, sure.
I spent like an hour going through their ad choices thing and trying to turn all that off. Does that do anything?
It does a little bit, but they're still going to scan your emails.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Still going to scan it. There's still going to be some things that they're collecting just to have that account all the time. And there's going to be some things they collect on it just for legal purposes, like for terrorist rings. They're searching for stuff like that, searching for child pornography. They're searching for different types of slavery that's still around, believe it or not, with trading young children and coming across the border. All that stuff, they're looking for all that all the time in emails and even cell phone conversations. There's certain levels that are going to, it's just going to be filtered. It's going to happen. And I'm, personally fine with most of it, but I am, just know that when you're doing anything online, whether it be email or whether it be Facebook, social media, it's not private. It's really not. I mean, it's not like super, super duper private. You know what I mean? Yeah, there is. I'll talk about some emails this semester that are encrypted, that are totally free to grab a hold of, that folks from, and it's good. Gmail's awesome. But we'll talk about ways that you can encrypt your email to where that doesn't happen. For sure, definitely. And there are companies that do it all the time, and individuals. So no simple solution. Today's attacks are very advanced, not because really of the user's knowledge, but of the vast supply of script kiddies we talked about on Tuesday a little bit, apps that people can download or services people can pay for and say, I want this website taken down for $500. I want this person's identity questioned, maybe not identity theft, but kind of smearing a person for $10,000. The list goes on of things that people can purchase. And yes, it is illegal, but it's done every day. And it's done within the confines of security. And software vulnerabilities also are a big one. And the big one today really is not that it's not around and it's not a problem, but just because of the sheer number of mobile devices, your smartphones are becoming more and more of a target than desktops and laptops, because guess what? People use the smartphones more. And it is all platforms as well, not just Android, but iOS is targeted as well. There are some software vulnerabilities that might lean itself more towards one OS than the other, but both are being targeted. All smartphones are being targeted, and you'll learn about some of those targeted attacks. One of the ones you might have heard of, we'll talk about this semester, is ransomware, where ransomware will target a phone, lock it, and encrypt it, and have a button that says, tap here, pay $30 or $300 to get your phone unlocked. And you tap here, and you pay $300, and they unlock your phone. So they're criminals, but they're honest criminals. And, they for the most part will do that. But I always tell folks, if that ever does happen, don't ever pay the money. You can wipe your phone, and hopefully you have a backup somewhere where you can restore that, and maybe get rid of some apps you have on your phone that maybe caused it, or some surfing habits that might have caused it as well. So we'll talk about that as well this semester. So examples of some yes.
Do these PowerPoints listed anywhere?
Any what now?
Do you have them posted anywhere?
No, I don't. Nope. I do not. If you want a copy, I can give you the copy though. Now, examples of recent attacks, as far as bogus antivirus software, marketing credit card thieves, online banking attacks, hacking contest, Nigerian 419, advanced fee fraud, identity theft using Firesheet, malware, infected USB thumb drives, And then this screen goes over some of the breaches and what the organization's name, the type, and the number of identities exposed. So Gray Harbor Pediatrics had a backup tape stolen from their employee's car. It was used for storing copies of paper records. Patients may have heard their names, had their names, social security numbers, insurance details, driver license information, immunization records, medical history, and previous doctor records and patient medical records stolen. 12,000 employees' identities were exposed. Going on down to the third one in Seacoast Radiology, patient names, social security numbers, addresses, phone numbers, and other personal information was exposed by a security breach, 231,000. A few more down, the Deviant Art, Silver Pop Systems in California. Attackers exposed their email address, usernames, and dates of the entire user database, 13 million people. And just so you know, hackers know this, and this is true. And don't tell me if it's true about you. I don't want to know. But when hackers find a password for an individual and an email that they use, it's generally used in multiple accounts, up to 20 accounts, from banking to credit cards to a plethora of online accounts. And it doesn't take much searching to find out which accounts you are signed up to with a pretty quick Google search on what accounts you're signed up to, or to grab a hold of your computer for a second. And so we'll talk about the danger of having multiple accounts with the same username and password, and how it only takes a hacker 30 seconds to grab passwords on a man-in-the-middle attack, which we'll do here in a few weeks, where folks walk into a hotspot or a cafe and they glom onto a Wi-Fi network that says AT&T, which they always do, but it's not the actual AT&T router in the back. It's a hacker sitting right across the table from them. And when they log in, they now fire up some software and they're viewing all the traffic of that individual and capturing data and capturing passwords and capturing usernames. And it takes about 30 seconds once they're connected to capture a whole host of stuff that they can shut their laptop and go home and literally start hacking into a person's account. And so we'll talk about ways to thwart against that, ways that occurs, how fast a man-in-the-middle attack can occur in any network, regardless how secure it might be. We'll talk about how that occurs as well, and ways that you can thwart against it from happening. Gawker, New York, the last one, attackers gain access to a database and access staff and user emails and passwords, 1,300,000. So there's difficulties when it comes to attacks, universal connected device, everything talks to one another, from banking to colleges to loan places, credit card folks all connect one to another. So if you use your card in one location, it's more than likely been used in thousands of locations in the last 2 or 3 years. And with the right technology, you can trace that fairly easily where those cards have been possibly used. Greater sophistication of attacks, speed of attacks, availability of tools like script kiddies, and faster detection of vulnerabilities. There's actually a really huge business today in the white hat hacker world, which means that people that do it for good, where they find vulnerabilities in software or in processes and ask the company, tell the company what that vulnerability is and to fix it. And if they don't fix it, they're going to let it out into the hacker community within X amount of days. And you say, well, that's kind of bad to do that. Well, it is and it isn't. Hackers generally already know about the breach or about the security flaw. This company is just letting the company know, we're going to let more people know. And a lot of times they'll hire them, they'll be hireable to fix that issue possibly. And so it is a lucrative position. Kevin Mitnick, which you know you've heard of or maybe haven't heard of, a popular hacker, does a lot of training in that area for companies, as well as does a lot of consulting himself. I think the last time I talked to his assistant, he was charging $20,000 for every 10 minutes. That was his going rate. That was 5 years ago. So just 10 minutes of his time in any situation, 20 grand to find out, pick his brain on what the company needs to do to be secure. And so there is money had in ethical hacking, not just in black hat hacking, but in ethical hacking as well. And good money if you know what you're doing. When it comes to patches, that refers to basically Microsoft patches for security patches, Mac patches, server patches. If people don't apply patches, they don't really do much good when it comes to security patches. Now, there's tons of patches that are out there that you have no reason to install. You don't need them. Majority of Microsoft patches are done for big companies like IBM, for special devices that they have. That's not a security patch. That's what's called eventually a cumulative patch. The security patches are pretty important to keep updated. I'm a big believer in not applying patches at all until you've tested them on your networks and your computers. And we'll talk about ways to do that this semester, ways I've done in the past, the way I do it presently. Distributed attacks, user confusion, that's a big one. Do I click on this? Do I not click on that? Do I open this? Do I not open that? People are confused. Even IT people I talk to are confused. Well, why'd you do that for? Well, I knew one guy that his consensus was if the network was slow or there was problems going on, his solution was always apply all the updates possible to that server. Well, it doesn't take too long when you do that. Things start shutting down. Services start shutting down. Problems start occurring. But he's dead set. He was not going to change his mind. He still to this day is the same way. And people that he manages has to fix it. But that's just the way it is. So user confusion is a big one. It's a lot of knowledge. I mean, this field in IT, any field you go into in IT, you're constantly learning. I mean, I go to at least half a dozen seminars a year on updating on everything from ethical hacking to networking to protocols every year. And I could go to more for sure. I just don't have time. And so it's one of these fields that you're constantly learning. It's not like you learn something this semester and you're done. It's like continual learning all the time. It's continually growing and learning. You will find, though, hopefully, like I have, a niche that you like and you'll stick with that. And that'll be your little specialty or something that you make a living with. But most IT folks are eclectic in what they do. You can do a lot of different things. And so we'll talk about that as well, all the different opportunities out there this semester. So one of the difficulties in defending against attacks in this little chart talks about the universal connected devices where attackers can attack from anywhere in the world, can send attacks. These could be Internet of Things devices that control lights in a house, to garages, to your car, to a whole host of things that are globally connected. Your Alexa, your Google, your Siri, that are commanded somehow, globally connected somehow, can be hacked into. And you've probably heard stuff on the news and watched documentaries on that. Not real secretive. It's out there. That information is. And then speed of attacks. Attackers can launch attacks against millions of computers in minutes, over and over again, with script kiddies and tools of sophistication. Greater sophistication attack is not, again, because of knowledge of the user, but the sheer volume of tools that are available. And then simplicity. Attackers are no longer limited to highly skilled attacks. Attacks are no longer limited to highly skilled attackers. Just as long as they have the right tool, they can apply it, whether it be taking a website down, defacing a website, things like that. Faster detection of vulnerabilities. Attackers can discover security holes in hardware software more quickly. Delays in patches. Vendors are overwhelmed trying to keep pace by updating their products against attacks. Sometimes they update it to the point to where it doesn't work. Adobe did that last year where they updated a network patch that was on a network port that they blocked. Well, that next morning, nationwide, or actually worldwide, people that used that port on their network was dead in the water. It killed that port on all activity on that port. So they quickly scrambled and had to, most IT folks just rolled back that patch that Adobe put out. But Adobe put out a patch to fix it, to roll it back. It was actually meant for one company, and it went out to the entire world. So, yeah, Adobe's a pretty big company. That can happen. Microsoft's done things like that before as well. Apple's done things like that before as well. Any large company that's bound to, is going to happen. Weak patch distribution. Many software products lack a means of distributing the security patches in a timely fashion. And you'll learn about different ways to apply a patch this semester. There's automated ways, and there are planned ways, which I recommend, where you do major testing in virtual environments of your network and your computers. You basically have a computer that has pretty much a snapshot of everything that you could have on your network, or multiple computers, to test those patches, make sure there's no issues. And then distributed attacks. Attackers can use thousands of computers called botnets to attack against a single network that work at night when people is asleep, which 99.9% of people keep their computers on all the time. So a lot of these people have things running in the background they don't even know that's doing what's called botnet technology, which we'll learn about what that is this semester, that can be used for good. It can be used for like quantum computing, for computing algorithms for cancer, fighting cancer, to growth in third world countries. But it can also be used for evil, to take down whole nations' electrical grid, or the city of Chicago electrical grid. So what is information security? Before defense is possible, you need to understand the basics of what it is, why it's important, and who the attacker or attackers are. So security is basically steps to protect something, right? Law enforcement protects individuals. IT security folks protect intellectual property of individuals, and networks that they work on, and software that they work on. Now, security will always be sacrificed. Convenience will always be sacrificed with security, meaning the more secure something is, the less likely people will enjoy it if it's more secure, if that makes sense. Whether it be, you might have read chapter 1, we'll talk about in a second, the length of a password. If you go in tomorrow and tell all your employees, everybody has to have a 13-character password. It has to be alphanumeric with a special character and a number on the end. It has to be changed every 30 days, and the password cannot be the same for 2 years. And it has to be a different password every single month. They would probably flip their lid, right? But there are ways to help folks understand that, and maybe not do 30 days, maybe do every 90 days, and maybe show them, okay, what is a secure password? How do you create one? And maybe with the more education under the belt, they won't feel as overwhelmed possibly. And also, here's reasons why, and give them case studies of what happens when somebody can get your password. You could actually have to prove you didn't do something because somebody stole your password, versus it never happens if you have a strong password. So, and that happens all the time as well. Information security, guarding digital information, providing value to people and organizations. 3 types of information is protected, called the CIA, the confidential, integrity, and availability. So your data, or your company's data, is confidential, meaning only approved individuals may access that information. Integrity, the information is unaltered and correct, and if it is changed, you are the only one to change it. Availability, information is access to authorized users only, whether it be a door access in the building, to logging into your computer, to logging onto your phone, to logging into your bank account. Is available only for you. And we could apply all I just mentioned with these 3 words. Confidentiality, we want that. We want integrity, yes. And we want availability for every single piece of data in our life, right? Whether it be banking, whether it be at school, whether it be at work. And if not, then that's why companies get lawsuits. That's when that happens. Why do you think companies hold off on telling the public or their members about a credit card breach? Why do you think they wait?
So you can't sue.
No?
So you can't sue them until it's
Right. Well, they can't sue them, or least likely able to sue them, possibly because they get all their ducks in a row with their lawyers and stuff. Anybody else think of a reason why they wait? Some companies actually wait like a year before they let anybody know. And by the way, there is no real hard, fast law on when you're supposed to tell your members about something. It's just common courtesy. But people will leave and go somewhere else more than likely, and that happens. But mainly it's for companies to not get sued, but also to hopefully turn around immediately when they do say what happened. Oh, by the way, we've given you a year's worth of credit-wise to watch your credit at no cost. We've given you, LifeLock. We're gonna commit our dollars to help you keep track of your personal security because of the security breach. And that does help. That does help people peace of mind a little bit when companies do that. Versus, by the way, your credit card was stolen and your data. Good luck with that. That's generally not good. And that company probably wouldn't stay around too long if that happened. Now, protections implemented to secure information, authentication, authorization, and accounting. So authentication is you are who you say you are when you authenticate. Okay. I used to work in a company. I was in security, and we had cameras everywhere. Going through school, I worked there, and we saw employees time at the time clock at the elevators. And I remember one time a guy had one of his buddies clock out for him. He went home like 3 hours early and had his buddy clock out for him with his badge, not thinking anybody would know. Well, the camera saw the guy's badge, and he also saw the guy leave the building 3 hours early. And the rule of that company was if you confront somebody with something they did, whether it's something like stealing something or in that case stealing time from the company, if you confronted them and they admitted to it, they got reprimanded, they got written up, a final warning, but they kept their job. Okay. If they didn't admit to it or they did, lied and said they didn't do it or whatever, then they were shown the video of what they actually did because they just said they didn't do it. Then they were escorted out by the police in handcuffs and arrested and prosecuted to the nth degree. And so this was widely known, even though people knew this. You'd be surprised how many people still took that chance to steal a keyboard or a mouse or literally a keyboard. One guy got arrested for a keyboard. I'm like, are you serious? If you'd have told me, I'd have given you a keyboard. I'd have found a keyboard to give you if you needed one that bad. To somebody stealing money out of a secretary's desk. It was a maintenance person stealing money out of the secretary's desk. For that one, we had to put a pinhole camera next to the desk at night for a couple nights. And we actually had on film this person stealing money. It was just like $1 a night for pop or what. It wasn't that much, but still, the secretary would count every morning. That person, though, luckily did admit to it right when they were confronted. They admitted to it, gave back the money, was written up, and kept their job. And as far as I know, didn't do anything like that after that. So that's what the company wanted people to do. So, but when you're authenticating with your computer, with your bank, you want to make sure you're the only one that can do that. You don't want everybody and your brother having it. Same thing with authorization, that you are the only one granted to have access. And accounting, providing tracking of all events from logging in and logging out your computer to the door you look with a proximity card. So here's a circle of trust. If you remember the Fockers movie, remember the circle of trust, that's what this is. In the middle of the circle of trust is the information, your information, company information. Outside of that circle of trust is the three-prong stool here of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Outside of that is what holds it in and keeps it that way, which is communications, hardware, and software. Because without communications, and you have the best hardware and software, but if you don't have the right communication and education, it's for nothing. It's kind of like having the most expensive Cisco router and plugging it in and going, we're set, and not doing any configurations, not setting any rules. Same deal. You got to be able to communicate to that router what rules you want, what information is to be set. Same thing with your data. The company should have rules on communication on passwords. They should have rules on who can log in and log out for you. Nobody, you do it yourself. Sharing passwords, things like that, sharing company data. The next circle is of products would be the physical security, which would be such things as your actual computer that you work on, your door access to things, hardware within the building. You could even say your car, things like that. And then next is your own security. And then lastly is the procedures around the company that organizationally should constantly be updated. And that all these circles actually have their own position within IT security. There's actually positions right now, if you were to go to dice.com and type in IT security jobs in the 150-mile radius from here, all of these types of keywords would be in those job descriptions. From IT security analyst to where you just basically are the outer circle person. You look at the global organization and go, okay, what's the risk here? How are we going to minimize these risks? Who's going to minimize these risks? What is it going to cost? And then you got boots on the ground people like me who likes to maybe do a little bit of both, where I like to talk to people, but I also like to do some technical stuff too. And so, but then you might be the type of person that you're all technical. You don't really like to deal with people a lot. You're more technical. We need people like that too. And so wherever your niche is, you can fit and find a spot. But then network security needs even more than what we have today. So products would be like the physical security, the data locks, door locks, people, talked about that, and procedures, talked about that. So let's talk about the things that are needing to be secure. The first is, some of the terms here, is asset. When you do inventory, I used to be a restaurant manager and a chef for years, and we had to do weekly inventory of every product in the restaurant, thousands and thousands of products in the restaurant. And each product had a value. It could be a packet of sugar, it had a value to that product, right? Had to be inventoried on what do we have this week, what do we have last week, what do we have to come ship in, what have we sold? And then we can determine from that how much money we made that week in food and alcohol sales, and those are it, food and alcohol for restaurants. In IT, your assets is also same deal, but in a different realm, meaning your servers, your switches, your computers, the data itself on those devices, and people also is an asset for a company. People. I mean, how many times you hear in the news where a company isn't found guilty about something, but they pay millions of dollars for something, right? Because the courts see that their data was breached or that their person was, damaged, their livelihood was taken, whatever. So assets are important to understand. And it's more than just techie stuff. It's also you as a person, and all the company people that work there. Threats are basically action or events that potential cause harm to those assets. And then threat agent is a person or element with the power to carry out a threat. So this chart goes over some of the information technology assets. I just want to highlight a couple of these. One is application software, where it supports business procedures and processes. Example, customized order transaction application for a word processor. Is it critical? Yes. Without this, the company wouldn't be able to customize the orders for the company or for the customers. Next would be services, the last one. Outsourcing or outsourced computing services, voice and data communication. Is this critical access? No, it can be easily replaced because it's outsourced. So there can be some that's critical, some that aren't. Vulnerability would be flaws or weaknesses in the network or in a system. Risk, likelihood that a threat agent could exploit that vulnerability, and the cost could be really high, could take long to implement. So here's a good diagram of how stuff is stolen. This is a car. It's got some rims. That's asset. It's got, and that's what the thief was looking for here. It's got a hole in the fence. That'd be the vulnerability. So here we have the risk being the stolen rims. The exploit is the hole in the fence. The loss of rims is the threat, and the thief is a threat agent. So when you're dealing with risk, every company has risk, right? Walmart, let's talk about that. Walmart has risk every year of stuff walks out the door every year. They know that. What dollar amount per store? I don't know. But let's say a store has $750,000 taken out the door every year. Let's just say that for argument's sake. They accept that risk. They accept that. They eat it. They realize there's a chance that this is going to happen, and a good chance, and that's it. So we can accept it, like Walmart does, X amount of dollars a year, right? Or we can diminish it by having greeters at the door. And that does diminish it. That's one reason Sam Walton, or the reason Sam Walton wanted greeters, was not just to help folks that are handicapped have a job, which was one reason. But if you see a grandma or grandpa character at a door, criminals are less likely to steal if they see those people at the door, and say hi, and they say hi to them, and they look them in the eye. It's been proven people won't steal, be less likely to steal something walking by grandma and grandpa in Walmart. That's why he did it. And by the way, the board fought him for years on that. And the first year they implemented it, they saved I don't know how many millions of dollars and stuff that did not walk out. And he was right. Now, when he passed away, guess what? They took the greeters away for a while. But guess if you walk around to all the Walmarts today in one Rockford, guess what's back? The greeters are back, right? And I felt bad for them. I don't know if you guys saw this, but when the greeters were taken off that front door, they were putting them like in stock. They were doing stocking shelves and stuff. I'm like, they're like a 90-year-old guy stocking cans. I'm like, are you serious? Right? But when you diminish the risk or diminish the risk, basically, you can do things like take precautions like the greeters. Most information security risk could be diminished. Could be if it's a password issue with your employees, educating them on passwords. If their passwords are being lost or stolen or hacked into at home, or not just at work, but at home too. Because a smart employer is going to educate them not just to help them at work, but their total person, even outside of work. Which would mean if you educate them on passwords, it's going to also help them with their banking account password, their credit card password. And smart businesses know if a person loses, gets their credit stolen and identity theft, that's going to affect their work. It's going to affect your mental state, right? If you've ever had that happen or know somebody that has, it messes you up. It messes your mind up. It's kind of like being robbed or something, your house being robbed, but it's your money, right? It's your money that you work for. Then you can transfer the risk. An example would be insurance. We all have insurance, hopefully, on your vehicles, where we purchase that just in case something happens, somebody hits us, we hit somebody, and we pay for it every month. Hopefully we never have to use it, but that's what it's there for. So preventing data theft, you can have such things as security often associated with data theft, business data theft, and individual data theft, like identity theft or credit cards. Thwarting against identity theft, using another's personal information in an unauthorized manner, usually for financial gain, okay, which criminals do all the time. Whether it's a call to a grandma or grandpa characters that says they're a long-lost relative needing $5,000. That was a scam in Rockford the last couple of years. They literally got millions of dollars out of the elderly folks that did this. Because they were lonely. They hadn't talked to anybody in their own family for years, maybe, and they just gave them the money. And then found out they didn't know who this person was. Example, stealing a person's social security number, credit card information, charge purchases, leave unpaid. I mean, the big thing is lately is people ordering things, or not just ordering things, going to people's houses to pick up their packages. They got some pretty funny ones I've seen lately, where a guy actually knew this person came around all the time and put like a cat inside the box, or some mean tomcat. And so when the person went to pick up the box and kind of felt something was weird about the box, went to pick up the lid, that cat got him right in the face. It was awesome. And so, the examples go on and on as far as things that are stolen, things that people steal. A big one is taking a website and phishing it, making it look like another website, and people using that to get an email from us, say they're this ABC company. Oh, by the way, you need to log in. You need to log in and reset your password. But don't worry about if you forgot your password. We'll help you down the road. And so when they log in with their real password, which most people do, now they have the real password for the real account, and they wipe it out in 24 hours. And people have done that, by the way. Banks have had that happen to them as well. Chase Bank had that happen a while back. So lesson on that one, banks, financial institutions will never send you an email to do that, by the way. They will send a letter in the mail sometimes to say, hey, something's wrong with your account. We've been trying to get a hold of you. Call this number. Verify that's the right number before you call it, because there's been stuff going around with that as well. Laws protecting against your data privacy. We have the health, insurance, portability, and accountability, HIPAA. That helps you keep your medical data private at OSF or wherever you have medical data. It's been around since 1996. Sarbanes-Oxley, 2002. I just went through a Sarbanes-Oxley audit. 3 books this big. Took 6 months. Everything from technical stuff to HR stuff, and it was really boring. But Sarbanes-Oxley are usually, for companies that are public companies, have to go through this every year to make sure everything's in order, which is a good thing because it's a public-owned company. Graham-Leach-Biley Act, same thing as Sarbanes-Oxley, but it's kind of not as stringent. And then California's Database Security Breach Notification Act. And basically this stemmed back from a security breach on a large company back in 2002 that helps companies be educated and notify members of the companies when the data breach occurs in X amount of days. So here's basic understanding importance of information security. Post-attack cleanups, time and money is important. Bottom line stuff. So number of employees, 100. Average salary, $25 an hour. Number of employees to combat an attack, 1. Hours required to stop and clean it up, 48. Total lost salaries, $4 grand. Lost productivity, 81 hours. Not too bad. But let's look at the bottom one here. 1,000 employees. Average hourly salary, $30. It takes 10 employees to combat the attack for that number of people. 96 hours, $220,000, and lost productivity hours, 1,293 hours of lost productivity. So cyber terrorism, this is again huge on the market. It's everywhere. It's thwarted and foiled all the time, and we're as citizens, we're not made aware of all of them for sure. But basically, it's just premeditated, long time planning, generally from, and we've all seen this play out, from being hired at an airport to working your way up to manager, to hiring your friends, to taking over an airplane, to crashing on the ground. That happened. So could it happen again? Yes, it definitely could happen again. If people say it couldn't happen again, they're being real naive. But that begs the question: is what can we do to stop it happening again? Or just like recently in the news, the farm that hired that kid that killed the college girl, and came out and said, well, we did not use a correct verification to make sure he was a legal citizen. Yeah, that's something they're going to probably get a lawsuit over, I'm guessing, that company. But I don't think that is, something they did on purpose. I think they just, companies probably do that all the time. But cyber terrorism is something that's premeditated. It's a generally a belief system as well, and can be politically motivated. Target would be information, computer systems, data, and is designed to cause panic during pivotal times, before an election, after an election. We're seeing it happen now. Provoke violence and financial catastrophe. All of that. Potential cyber terrorism targets would be banking, military, energy plants, transportation, and water systems. I mean, we have an energy plant not too far from us. Does anybody live by that, by the way? Live over in that area? Because that one is the number one on the cyber terrorist list as far as things the U.S. watches, is that Byron power plant for sure. Because if they got in the wrong hands, the technology got in the wrong hands, it could really do some damage to this area. So who are the attackers? So we got hackers, and we'll hear some terms this semester tossed around, but just to help it be clear a little bit, white hat hackers are good hackers that just do it for educational purposes. Script kiddies are folks that just download, and it's not kids that do it. There are kids that do it, but it's just scripts that people can download to deface a website, to take a website down, to take a server down. Spies, insiders, cyber criminals, cyber terrorists. These are just some categories of attackers. Hacker, person who uses computer skills to attack computers. Term not common in security community. White hat hackers, goal to expose security flaws, not to steal data. Black hat hackers, goal is malicious, destructive in nature. And script kiddies is basically the goal is to get in quickly, get out, unskilled users, downloading software to attack a system. 40% of attacks are performed, and that's probably a low number, by script kiddies. They're written over and over and over again, morphed and changed a little bit to do something a little different programmatically, to where it can't be caught by antivirus. You have to change some patterns, change the way things are done. Because a lot of antivirus today uses what's called heuristics. And heuristics just basically looks at a pattern of stuff, a pattern of how a program functions, or what it looks at, or what ports it looks at, or what things it's doing. Well, hackers know that, and they can just continually change that pattern to where it's changed so fast that the antivirus companies can't keep up with it. And that does occur quite a bit. Spies, these are basically people hired to break into a computer, to steal information, sensitive. The goal is to steal information without drawing attention to their actions, getting in and out without being seen. They generally possess excellent computer skills, generally started out in ethical hacking, and something happened, whether a financial mishap, they needed the money. Folks found out how good they were and offered them something they couldn't refuse, maybe. That happens. Government is also trying to grab a hold of folks like this as well. They generally hit campuses, and even Rock Valley College has been a recruiting place for that, for students that are exceptional in computer skills. And you generally don't find these jobs online or in the paper. They generally find you. And so we have had a number of students. I've had a number of students over the years that have gotten approached and have taken some jobs in the government because of that, because of their computer skills. Insiders, these are people basically that get information, like insider trading. You might have heard of that term when it comes to the stock market. What that means is, okay, I know something about Andrew's stock, right? And I'm like, Andrew, I just found out something this morning. If you sell tonight, you're going to make millions off this stock. That's insider information. It's illegal to do that, but it does happen. Same thing in technology, though. There are people that are hired in companies to be a fly on the wall, whatever position, to get information to get back to another company. That happens as well. Examples of insider attacks would be healthcare worker, publicized celebrities, health records, disgruntled employee, upcoming job termination, disgruntled over upcoming job termination, a government employee planted malicious code in a script, stock trader concealed losses through fake transactions, U.S. Army private access sensitive documents. So cyber criminals, these are a network of attackers, identity thefts, identity thieves, spammers, financial fraudsters, and they move in different ways. They're more highly motivated. They're willing to take big risks. They're better funded, more tenacious, and the goal is financial gain. So underneath this category, we have what's called the gangs of young attackers, which in Eastern Europe, Asian, and third world countries. And the characteristics for the first group is strong technical skills. And so this one goes, since the demise of the Soviet Union in the 90s, a number of large universities have stopped teaching communist ideology and turned to teaching technology. Low income, with the transition from communism to free market, individuals in several countries or several nations have suffered the loss of economy supported by state, so have a low income and are more susceptible to be sucked into these gangs. And then unstable legal systems. Many nations continue to struggle with making and enforcing new laws. Tense political climate. Some new nations do not have the strong ties to other foreign nations, and sometimes complications obtain cooperation with local law enforcement. So cybercrime, targeted attacks that are against financial networks. Financial cybercrime is where basically you have trafficking and stolen credit cards and spam to commit fraud. As I mentioned earlier, cyber terrorism, more ideology. It's more of an idea. It can be a religion, but not always. It can just be an ideology that says, I'm going to stand against this system. And the system could be a government. The system could be a people, a race of people. It could be a law. A whole bunch of different things could happen or could be in that ideology. So I think sometimes when people think of ideological differences, they think of religion only, which definitely that is the case for sure. But there's a whole host of reasons, a whole host of ideological differences and beliefs that people have. Goals of cyber attack is basically to deface information and spread misinformation, denial of service, unauthorized intrusion. It's basically used a lot of times for corporate takeover as well, where a company might hire without, under the table, hire someone to make a company look bad, whether it be on an attack, whether it be on a data breach. And then company B goes in and buys that company out in a hostile takeover. Wide variety of attacks, wide variety of different ways things can be attacked, from computers to phones. But there's 5 fundamental security principles we're going to go over at the end here. Steps of attack is basically probing for information. This was on the Kahoot Tuesday, I believe. Penetrate any defenses, then modify security settings, circulate to other systems, and then paralyze the network. So probe, penetrate, modify, circulate, and paralyze. That is the 5 steps of an attack for most hackers when they come into a network, in that order, or mixed up, but at least all those are generally touched during that attack. Because without probing for information, you're not going to know what you can attack. And so probing for information like IP addresses, what times do people come to the building? What times do people log in? What type of data do they store? Where do they store it? Stuff like that. Where's all the Wi-Fi access points? Are they easily hacked into? Can I get in one now and basically a scanner scan the network for 24 hours and get that data and come back and get it? So here's an example of upper left corner, hackers probing for information. Number 2, they penetrate any defenses by finding out, let's say, the IP address of the server, and they themselves become the server now, which would be like a man-in-the-middle attack. Number 3, now with administrative rights, because they are actually the server, they can go in and start modifying settings on the network and on people's computers. And then they can begin calculating and circulating to other systems, propagating it throughout the system and letting the attack occur to where finally the networks and all the devices are crippled and paralyzed and locked up. You probably had this happen in your own computer maybe, where you had some malware or something was slow, right? And then over time, it just got slower and slower and slower and slower every time you started. You ever had that happen on a computer? To where eventually it blue screens and you can't even start it up. Anybody had that happen before on your computer? If you haven't, you will. Okay, it will happen one day. I don't wish that on you, but it's just normal, everyday computer is going to happen to it sometimes. Do I know? Sure, it can happen to any kind of computer. Apple, Linux, Windows. Yeah, for sure. Now, it's less likely to happen on a Linux or Mac, but it can happen. I've had it happen before. But anyway, these attacks and the way they occur, probing, penetrating, modifying, circulating, and paralyzing. Now, once you get to the paralyzing node of this process, it's very hard and sometimes impossible to trace that attacker because they're already gone. They're out of there. They're done. Traces have been covered, tracks have been covered, and not going to find them generally. And one example I'll give of that is law enforcement here in town. I was talking to one of the big cyber attacks in Rockford, not just everywhere, it's everywhere, not just Rockford, but is to log into people's computer at night, like 3 a.m. in the morning, and set up a Craigslist account while they're logged in, remote into this computer to sell a car, let's say, right? And they put the car up there, tell them how much it's worth, how much it's selling for, and they a person contacts them on the site. It's okay, we're going to meet at this location. They meet at that location. Well, there's no car there, and the person gets robbed. They get their money stolen from them. Well, what happens law enforcement wise is that homeowner has to prove they didn't do it because it was on their computer, even though it was 3 in the morning. But they now have to prove they didn't do it. And I won't mention any groups here in town or any departments, but 99% of the time, the guy told me that they can't ever trace it because it's untraceable. They've logged in, they've got access generally from a form somebody filled out online where they downloaded an app for a free game. Inside that app for the free game was this backdoor remote control piece that allowed them to get in the computer. There's literally nothing they can trace to find anything. Even the ad, right? Or they say, okay, we can go back to location, and it's a dirt, it's an alleyway, or it's a grocery store parking lot with no cameras. Yeah, they're not going to ever find anything. But, and I asked them, well, how, does it generally go to prosecution for the homeowners, or do you guys know pretty much going into it that they didn't do it? But again, they have to go through the steps of proving they didn't do it. And it's really heart wrenching, you say, because some of these people are, again, grandma and grandpa types. Like, I wasn't on my computer. I didn't know how to get into Craigslist, and they can seriously, one of the ways they can prove it is their search history. They can search to say, okay, oh yeah, this person never goes into Craigslist. It's the first time it's been on this computer. Okay, that makes sense. And they come to find out they downloaded a game, they downloaded something, whatever, and they can prove it at that point. But it takes time. It's not like they're literally, in this case, kind of guilty before proven innocent almost, which that's what this document here is referring to. The screenshot is referring to. Once number 5 occurs and that hacker doesn't show this on the screen, is gone, the damage is already done. They've already stolen data more than likely. They've already crippled the network more than likely. And it's up to the IT folks basically just to see what they can restore and back up and bring everything back to normal. So lastly, the defenses against attacks would be layering, limiting, diversity, obscurity, and simplicity. And the older I'm getting and the more I work in IT security, the last one is something that we sometimes forget. We can make things so complex, and I've done it myself, in IT processes, that it literally shoots ourselves in the foot, okay? What I mean by that is we can set up a process to be so stringent in a network that we're literally killing ourselves to keep up with our own process. And it's not helping the system any. It's not helping really any. Just really kind of a lot of stuff, right? I'm of the belief that last one, simplicity, out of sight, out of mind when it comes to stuff on the network. If people can't see it, they're not going to be tempted to hack it. If they can't see it, and they don't know what's there, they're going to be less tempted to hack it, right? It makes sense, right? But when I first started out in network security, I was the exact opposite. I was definitely the most, whatever the most annoying in-your-face system was to kind of embarrass somebody, that's the kind I liked. And really, it ended up being more work for the IT department than it did help. To where now, I like things like, an example was in a high school where we had, anybody remember high school days, by the way? Remember high school days? Nobody? You remember the game Ages of Empire? AOE, remember that? Well, AOE, I think the executable on that was AOE.exe, I think is what the executable name was on. Oh, the other one was Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike and AOE was the two names, right? Anyway, okay, here's what happened. Here's what we did. I created the software that basically it would look for on any network computer. It would run on every time anybody logged in, it would run this little app that would check for the name or the process name of AOE or of Counter-Strike. And then it would just lock the screen, do a screenshot, lock the screen, beep, and then put a password up and then email the principal and the IT director when it happens. So the kids sitting there like this, oh, and the lab person has to come over and put the password in, send the kid to the principal's office. Okay, that was pretty extreme. Right? It's annoying. It was, I mean, I got some laughs. I will say I got some laughs over watching kids do that. But anyway, it was very annoying to lab people because they had to do all the work and administration, all that stuff. Okay, and more from that to an app that basically this is what it went to. Kids would come in generally and say, "Hey, I need to go to the lab to work on an English paper." Well, when you have 3 high school boys going to a lab to work on an English paper at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, they're not going to work on an English paper. I guarantee you that, right? So they come walking in, and the IT office had a piece of glass about the size of that board there. It's a two-way glass. And so we could see what was going on. These kids, one kid would walk in first to start the Counter-Strike and set up the host for Counter-Strike, basically, right? And it took about maybe, 5 minutes to do that, roughly. Well, I put the app to where I would set it for 10 minutes. It would notice it was running, let it go for 10 minutes. So they all be in. The other two would be coming in, and they join, and they go bloop, just kill the app, and they look at each other and go, "Did you start the app?" "Yeah, I started it. Didn't you see it?" "Well, it's gone now." Start it again. So okay, Johnny starts it again. Okay, all right. Is it started? Yeah, I got the other two to connect to it. Get right, get all positioned. If you remember Counter-Strike, all where they're going to be at, get their teams and everything. Bloop. After about the third time, they'd walk out and go, "You know what? I'm getting sick and tired of this computer lab. Every time I walk in here, they're thinking Counter-Strike won't work." And I was telling the IT director, I was like, "Well, what are they going to do? Come and say, 'Hey, Mr. Conkle, Counter-Strike won't work. It's dying every time we get into it.'" But anyway, so that's my simplicity. It's an obscurity, right? That's how I like to manage now. Because again, people will, these kids proved it. After the third time, they stopped coming for months. They're like, "Forget, I'm not doing it. It's not worth my time. That's a waste of my time to come in here and try to get Counter-Strike going for 20 minutes. I could have been in class learning something." No, they never said that. But layering basically is where you basically create layers of defense. We'll learn this semester called honeypot. Okay, here's a honeypot. We'll say this is a honeypot here. Okay, we'll say it's a computer with all the ports open, tons of passwords on it that are really weak, and tons of software. Patches are outdated. This is a honeypot. Okay, and the reason we put honeypots in networks is, why do you think? Why do you think the reason we put honeypot? Yeah.
See what you want to get into stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're a new hacker, right, and you come in and see this, you're like, "Whoa, man, I got the mother load." So they get into the honeypot and they can go all day on that. There's literally nothing. There's files that are named confidential, important, do not touch, the SSN folder, which a whole bunch of bogus numbers in it. You know, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. But once they get into this and then start getting a whole bunch of data and stuff, you can then lock them in. You can lock them in the network to where you've locked their IP address in. And if you know your network well enough, you can actually trace where they're at kind of in the building or in the network. And they're so busy in that honeypot playing around, getting literally nothing, even though they're getting like bags of gold or something, that you can literally trace their IP address long enough, which takes about 10 minutes, trace their IP address long enough to actually capture where they're coming from. And if they're from like Xfinity, which is pretty popular around here, it's not too hard to find where they're at and where they're located at within literally about 50 feet of where they're at. And so that's a honeypot, and that's basically layering. So the layering would be they come in, they do the stuff in the honeypot, and the security knows when they're in there, alerts the IT folks, and then they can capture the address. The other way, if you ever seen the movie Mission Impossible, where they had this, had a door you'd walk through, they would do the door with, I think, proximity or no, hand password. And then he'd walk through the door with a gate password of his walk, right? And then the third door was like iWritten or something like that. Well, if you pass the first one and then failed in the middle one, it would lock both doors and you'd be stuck in between the two. In security, a lot of times you'll see that. And anybody worked in government before or know people that have in government? A lot of governmental facilities are set this way to where you'll have kind of it looks like a lobby area between the beginning and the entry door, and it can be locked and locked down quickly. Generally, if you go to the county courthouse, they have this to where they can lock the door and lock going into the courts and literally quarantine that area. Airports have the same thing, but networks have the same type of thing called layering, where basically you can have a systematic protection around your systems to where you're protecting them with different types of layering. And the attacker can break through all these little layers to get to the honeypot, but by the time they do that, they've already been caught. They're stuck in the honey. They can't get out, right? And they're locked in. We'll talk about how to do that. Limiting is another one I like to do. The book talks about that. If you don't need access, why do you have access? That's a good question, right? Does everybody need to be an admin on the computer? No. Now, one day, not too long ago, it was a case that pretty much anybody had to be an admin to run any type of software. You had to be literally an admin of that computer. But software has progressed to where it's not that way anymore. You can be a limited user, you can be a standard user, and do just fine on that software. Because with admin rights, you can do some stuff, right, on that computer that maybe IT doesn't want you to do, like changing the admin password possibly, which that happens. So methods of limiting access will be file permissions to prohibiting document removal from premises. The way I like to do it is, and in Windows you can do this, Linux you can do this, you can hide folders from people viewing it on a network. Literally hide them, they can't see them. Out of sight, out of mind. Does everybody need to see a folder on the network that says HR? No, they don't. Only HR needs to see that, right? Does everybody need to see a folder that IT has says tracking software of everybody folder? No, you don't need to see that, right? Because when people see that, human nature is to do what? It's 3 o'clock on a Friday and you've done all your work and you got 2 hours to go. Guess what? It's time to do some data mining, right? I'm going to start looking for stuff. Well, I didn't get a raise last time. What's this folder here in HR that says passed up for promotions? Well, I'm looking into that one, right? Huh? Yeah, I know. It's about to dead. I always do this. I like to push it to the end. All right, so I'm going to end on that one, on limiting. All right, cool. So Tuesday when you come, we're going to be talking about Chapter 2, skim on that one a little bit before you come. You don't have to read the whole thing. I've already went over the homework. And then Thursday, we'll have our very first lab, NT Reset. Do bring a binder for that one. You'll have handouts for that one next Tuesday. And we are done. If you have any questions, let me know. I think I had somebody I had to fill out an ad slip for. If you'll come and see me before you leave, that would be awesome. And thank you for giving me the reminder of the shutdown. I have 7% left. Okay.
Right next to you.
There it is. Yeah. Why do you use a plug? That takes some fun out of it. It's kind of like filling a gas tank up, right? I can make it 2 more miles.
Do we need to sign it today?
No, just on Tuesdays.
Tuesdays.
Yeah, just on Tuesdays.
All
I think it was a Seinfeld one where Kramer borrowed that car from the dealer and kept driving and driving and driving. Remember? It was like on E, and the guy was with him, and he's like, "Well, I can go about 20 more miles at least on E. At least." He said, "No, you can't." He said, "Oh, yeah, I can."
What kind of car?
Do what?
Depends on what kind of car it is.
Prius.
Yeah. Prius could do it. Yeah.
Honda, yeah.
If it was a Ford F-130 or F-150, forget it.
Raptor.
Yeah, Raptor. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes.
I need this. Please.
Okay, you do need that. Okay, cool. All you need to do, I sign my name.
Oh, I see.
You just need to put last name, first name, initial, and then walk it over to admissions.
Okay, and then there's no prerequisites because I don't know any of this already.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Networking or anything.
No, it's an intro class, so you're good.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I
you're
was just
fine.
checking because.
Yeah, so you just walked it over to admissions, you're good to go.
Okay, thanks. That sounds interesting.
Great.
I took Cisco 1 and 2. I took Cisco 1 and 2.
Hey, can I ask you a question that's not related to this really quick?
Sure.
How many Apple IDs can you